In our way, you always have to remember that we are not perfect people, that we're just like everybody else. That even though we had a society that's based on this tioshpe in ancient times, when children's talents were identified, they were taken into groups of people who had the same talent. So the older ones, they help the child develop that talent so that when they get older, they become contributing members to the society. So they're working right along with the adults in doing things, and they see how it helps the camp. They see that everybody is valuable, that everybody makes a contribution to the society, that they all work together, that everybody has something to offer. Yeah, that everybody is important. And to work along with the adults. And the adults are saying, good job, way to go. You did a good job. That really makes them feel good that they're contributing. No matter how small the task is, they're slowly going to gain more responsibility as they develop more and as they grow older and as they become more emotionally developed. That's the success of the camp. Now, there are individuals who choose to not be this way. They want to manipulate people to try to gain an advantage over others. So you see the dualistic tendency was in some people. And sometimes they would go so far as to try to use a dark magic to work something to happen against somebody else. When you do this, you have to be careful because the natural law of generosity states that everything that you say and do and how you say and do these things sends an energy out, but it returns to you 4 times as strong. So when you try to hurt others, you're only going to hurt yourself worse. Likewise, when you do good things willingly to help others, that energy is going to return to you 4 times as strong and bless you somehow. This is a natural law of generosity. Whatever you send out comes back 4 times stronger. This is what we learn as little children. But some people still want to gain an advantage over others. They have a selfish streak that runs. So then they'll go to a medicine man and they'll ask that medicine man, yeah, I really don't like this guy, and can you make something bad happen to him? Can you make him be unlucky? Remember, medicine men are human too. Medicine men make mistakes because they're human. All right? So, when they try to do something like this, they seem to forget about the natural law of generosity for some reason. Because some medicine men will try and do it. Yeah? I'll give you an example. Back in the 1960s, there was this young teenage girl, and she was a woman's fancy shawl dancer. And out of respect, I will not say her name. I will not even say which reservation she's from. But this is a true story. She went to Canada for a powwow up there, and there was a lot of well-known dancers going there in the powwow world. This is a contemporary thing. And usually people see each other at the same powwows. Or sometimes maybe they only see each other once a year at a certain powwow. So people are always happy to see each other, even in the audience. Not just dancers, but in the audience too. Yeah, they'll say, hey, it's good to see you again, kind of thing. And rekindle friendships and so forth. And this dancer, let's give her a name, okay? I'm going to choose a name. Let's call her, what name could really stick out? Let's call her Ursula. How about that? Give her a European sounding name. We'll call her Ursula. This is the fancy shawl dancer. Okay? Ursula, when she arrives, see, in those days, everybody camped out. Yeah, and a lot of times powwows are kind of out in the country a little bit. They're not always in town. Okay? So they camped out and they were getting ready for the first night powwow. It's usually Friday night. And usually dancers are, shaking hands and stuff like that. And she shook hands with this one girl. And let's call the second girl, let's just call her Beth. Okay? The second girl is named Beth. Ursula shook hands with everybody, including Beth, right? And the first night went okay. Usually in powwows, there's several dance categories. And then there's what they call intertribal. That's when everybody goes out there and dance. So the first evening went really good. The Saturday morning, Ursula woke up and her legs started to hurt a little bit. And so she was trying to walk it off. They kept cramping up. And so usually there's afternoon session and evening session. Afternoon session was okay, but by the time it was supper break, the pain was getting stronger. She didn't know if she could even dance because she was barely walking. So her dance category came up, and so she barely walked out there. And then they were starting to dance. She couldn't do it. So she walked off, because that's the traditional thing to do. When you can't do it, or if part of your regalia falls off, you're supposed to walk off out of the circle. That's a sign of respect. And she couldn't do it because the pain was really hard. So she walked off and she waved. She waved it off that she's done. And so the other dancers continued. That night she was in extreme pain. The hospital was too far away. So this was an Indian community. So there was a medicine man nearby. So they called for him to come. So he went over there. And he looked at her legs and he could see that there's something in there. So he did a ceremony. They closed off an area and they set up a sweat lodge. And he had her family in there to watch, to see what's going to happen. He wanted her family to watch because this way he can't be accused of anything, any wrongdoing. So he put his mouth to her leg and he made a sucking sound. And then he took something out of his mouth. It was a porcupine quill. This is one, he said. So he put his mouth over the other leg, on the calves. So he did the same thing. He pulled out another porcupine quill. And he started to doctor her legs, and then she started to feel better. And the pain went away, really went away fast. And he told to walk it, to get up and walk around, make sure you eat something, drink water, he said, and told her to walk. So she got up and she started walking, and the pain really went fast. It was gone. So then he explained to her parents, he said, somebody sent these to her. Somebody went to another medicine man and wanted your daughter to fail. They wanted your daughter to not be able to dance because somebody did not want her to win. The only way this can happen, he said, is that the other medicine man, he put like a spell on these two porcupine quills. And he must have told the other girl, when you shake her hand, that you put the quills in the palm of your hand. Because remember, these quills, they have a spell on it. And that as soon as you shake that girl's hand, those quills dissolve and go inside the dancer's body. So that must be what happened. He said, because people ask me to do this and I turn them down. I say no. Because of Wawokia, this natural law of generosity. If I did this, it's going to come back and I'm going to get hurt really bad. So he said, I don't know who did this, but I'm going to send them back. So watch, he said. So he put the the two quills in the palm of his hand, he started singing a song, singing the quills back to whoever sent it. He sang this song, and these quills, they left. They're just gone. Like they just disappeared. The mother and father were there, and they saw it. It just was gone. It just vanished. So we're going to find out tomorrow who sent this, he said. And then we'll ask her, what medicine man did you talk to? Now she sent this. So that has to go back to her. That's natural law, he says. So don't feel bad. He says, this is not a punishment. She sent it. So now she has to get it back. So then they said, okay. So by that time, Ursula was doing pretty good. And they said, okay, so we'll pray for that other person and then we'll find out tomorrow. So then in the meantime, they went out and they were helping Ursula out some more. And the medicine man said prayer over her. And he said, now when you go to dance, he said, before you go into the arena, he said, smudge your hands and smudge your feet. Put some sage in your moccasins. At the bottom of your moccasins, put some sage inside. And then you'll be okay. He said, nothing will happen to you. So she said, okay, so that's what they did. And so she was able to go to sleep that night in peace. She had no pain in her legs by that time. Next morning came, they had breakfast, and then she did what the medicine man told her. And then they got their answer. See, usually nothing happens in the morning times. People are just getting ready. And if they're traveling a long ways, they're usually taking their tent down and stuff like that and getting ready. So that way when the powwow is over, they just get in the car and go home. So they were doing that, packing their stuff up and stuff, just leaving out what they needed. Since she was a dancer, they were going to leave their tent up until the powwow was over, and then they were going to take it down. That way Ursula can come back and rest. So right around when lunchtime was going to start, people were reporting there's a girl in pain. So, gee, something must be wrong. So they went looking, and here they found out who it was. It was Beth. So her legs really hurt. So the medicine man went over there and he said, did you send this to Ursula? Don't lie to me, he said. And she admitted it, that she did. They said, you tell me who did this. He said, who gave you these quills? So she told them who it was. Yeah, she told them who it was, and then the medicine man took the quills out of that girl's leg. Now you know what Ursula felt like, he said. That's what you wished on her. It came back to you. Just because of money, he said. This is what happens when you do these kind of things. He said, I hope you learn from this. So then she was apologizing and she was crying and stuff like that. So her family, they took her out of the competition because they didn't realize their daughter had done this. The family didn't know, or so they say. So then Ursula went ahead and completed the day. And I don't know if she won or not, but she wanted to complete it, just to do that. Because she was dancing for the people. This is what she said. I'm not dancing for money. I'm dancing for the people. I want them to feel good. So she went and completed the day. She didn't care if she won or not. So after that, they went home. The next part of the scene, we head to the Rosebud Sioux Reservation. So from Canada, we're going down into Rosebud Sioux Reservation. There was a medicine man there, and I won't say his name, but I do know his name. I won't say it. That this apparently another person came to him to ask him to send bad energy to another person. So this is a different situation, but the same medicine man that Beth used. This is the medicine man that Beth used to send those porcupine quills. So now this time it's a man. A man wanted this same medicine man that Beth used to make something bad happen to somebody else. And so the medicine man did it. Then what happened next is after he did that ceremony, suddenly his body went up to the ceiling because they did this inside a house. He did this dark magic ceremony inside of his house. And suddenly it seemed like something threw his body up in the air and slammed him to the ceiling of the room. So when people were looking up there, they saw that he was on the ceiling. And he was screaming, "Somebody help me," he said. He was having a hard time breathing. The people didn't know what to do. So then they thought, okay, this is really a bad thing. So they sent for a different medicine man. Now this is another one. The one from Canada, he's from Canada. Okay? So he's not there. Now we're going to talk about a third medicine man. So they called this third medicine man, this other guy, and he came over right away. He saw this other medicine man on the ceiling. And he said, the Tunkashila are really upset with you. And he said, you're supposed to be helping people, and instead you're hurting them. This is a warning. If you do this one more time, they're going to take you. And so the medicine man said, okay, I promise to never do this again. And as soon as he did this, it seemed like whatever had him slammed his body to the floor, knocked him out, broke his nose, broke his jaws, a lot of his teeth fell out. That's how hard he hit the floor. So that third medicine man, he doctored him up, and he said, remember, if you do that one more time, they're going to take you. And you're not going to like where they take you. This is not hell. But this is something worse. This is really going to be a bad thing. So the medicine man said, yeah, I know. I'll never do it again. He said. So for a while he stayed okay. Remember, this is the guy that Beth used. Okay? So for a while he was okay. And he was helping people and stuff like that. Then somebody came. Another dancer came. This time it was a man. He wanted this medicine man to use alchemedicine to force another woman to fall in love with him. This powwow dancer, he was already married, he had kids, but he was in love with a dancer in Canada. So he wanted this medicine man to use alchemedicine to force that other woman to fall in love with him, even though he was already married. The medicine man said, no, I can't do that. I don't do that anymore. This powwow dancer said, I have $5,000 I can give you. In 1971, $5,000 was a lot of money, especially for an Indian. So the medicine man said, okay, I'll do it. So after that, the man, he had this powder that the medicine man gave him. He said, put this powder in her coffee and she'll fall in love with you. So the powwow dancer said, okay. So he left. So now the medicine man, he didn't know what to do because he just broke his promise for $5,000. So then he tried to stay home. He tried to stay out someplace where he can't be thrown. Yeah. So he seemed to be okay. Then about 4 days, usually most medicine men live in the country. And he had to drive into town to get some food. And Well, later that night, somebody found his car. It was parked in the middle of the road. And this medicine man was sitting in there, and his eyes were bug-eyed. And his mouth was wide open. He was dead. This is how he died. His eyes were bug-eyed. They literally came out of their sockets. The eyes, they literally came out of the sockets. So they really looked scary. And his mouth was wide open. And he was sitting there, still hands on the steering wheel. Car was still running. He was dead. Something scared him to death. They took him. So you see, you be careful with what you send out, because that's going to come back against you 4 times strong if it's bad. Now the powwow dancer, he never made it to Canada because his wife found this powder and she thought he was using drugs. Because this is the early 1970s and the American Indian movement was bringing heroin and cocaine on the reservation. So she thought that's what he was doing, so she flushed it down the toilet. Then she left him. She got her kids and left him because she thought he was taking drugs. So he lost everything. He didn't even get a chance. It's funny how things work out sometimes, yeah? So anyway. So these are the kind of things that happen that you have to be careful, because the thing is, this girl, Ursula, see, she was kind of codependent. She did things for others, which is nice, but she never took time for herself. So as a result, she became codependent. And because of that codependency, that those porcupine quills were able to go inside of her. If Ursula was not codependent, that would not have happened. See, that's why it's really important to understand the difference between generosity and codependency, because they're not the same. Generosity also includes you have to know when to say no when somebody asks you to do something. You have to know when to say no, because sometimes you have to, because what's being asked of you is not healthy. But Indians today think that generosity means you don't say no. That's what they think. And so, as a result, when they don't say no to anybody, then they lose self-esteem, which means they're more susceptible to unhealthy energy going inside their bodies because they've opened the door. Their codependency has opened the door for energy to go inside them. This is how the quills went into her body. She was codependent. So this is why it's really important to be emotionally healthy. When you are emotionally healthy and people try to do these things to you, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't bother you. Or it might bother you in the beginning, but then you think about it and then you release the energy. When we run into it, we might get a reaction. We might react a certain way, but we have to process it. We have to feel the emotion and then let it go and then bring in our mind and learn from it, and then it's done. We're at peace with it. It doesn't bother us anymore. When you do this, you're emotionally healthy. That's a sign that you're emotionally healthy. So this is really important, to be emotionally healthy. But in the Indian world, we went through an experience where we became unhealthy when the reservation period first started, and We were not allowed to leave. We were not allowed to speak our language. We were not allowed to do our ceremonies. So that meant we were hit physically, spiritually, and emotionally. That's 3 of the 4 parts of the self that went down. 3 went down. The last part was the mind. If one part of the self goes down, eventually the other 3 follow. In this situation, 3 of the 4 parts of the self were attacked, and they went down. And that's how we became weak-minded. Remember, we couldn't leave the reservation at that time. We were not allowed to eat healthy foods. We only were allowed to eat whatever the government gave to us, which was really unhealthy stuff that gave us heart disease, diabetes, and hypertension, and now today obesity. And couple this with not being able to speak your language or your ceremonies, we really became sick, and as a result our minds became weak. And now we were ready to be brainwashed. This is what cult leaders and terrorist groups do to their new recruits. They deprive them of things that their body needs, and this way they can control their minds. And that's what the priests did to Indians on the reservations in the early 1900s, late 1800s. And that's how they brainwashed us into becoming Christian. At that point, we became codependent. We forgot what real generosity means. That was in the early 1900s. So the next generation is even more unhealthier than the previous. They're more dualistic, they're more Christian. So by the time we get to the 1970s with Ursula, several generations have gone by where Indians have become more codependent with each coming generation. So by the time Ursula comes along, she's really codependent. And that's how the quills entered her, because of her codependency. That meant she was emotionally underdeveloped.
To read more about Lakota Star Knowledge spirituality, you can read my book called Wichocha Otechike. You can see the book cover on the right side of this screen. This book contains the information to what I talk about on my Lakota spirituality videos. To purchase this book, please click below where it says Show More. Clicking on that link will open up the description below, and there you will see a link called To Purchase My Books. As you will see, it's an eBay link. Click on that eBay link, and there you will see the information to get this book. Lila Pila Mayelo. Thank you very much.